Stream.
You want to talk where it's on?
Sorry?
On the stream.
I just did that.
Yeah, well, just showing you.
All right. Pencils down, laptops down. This is a full court press-minded virus injection. This is I'm going to give you a quick synopsis of why I retired at 38. Because I learned how to do this. Straight up. Here we go. Alright. We're going to learn JavaScript, which is not bad. But who here has been into this before? Straight up. Who's done code? In code. Okay. Ish. Okay. Good. I can lie. All right. So the best way for me to explain what programming is to tell you programs that I've written and why, from my experience, from what I can remember. So what we're going to talk about is JavaScript, but what I'm going to talk about is not JavaScript. But it don't matter. I've written plenty of this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's all about patterns, right? So I'm going to show you a couple of things to try to get you to understand what programming is as entertainingly as I possibly can. Because at the end of the day, this is business programming. You know, if you want to talk about, you know, writing crazy stuff for SpaceX, I'm not your man. If you want to know facial recognition for Facebook and how they're listening to you on your phones, I don't know how they're doing that. I could probably guess, but you know, that's how it works. So I'm gonna tell you some stories about writing software, writing code to solve problems at businesses, and that's what I do. If that's what you do, cool. If that's what you want to do, cool. So what we've been writing is presentation. Show me. Show me what you got. It don't matter what it is. Data, the status of servers, the parking lot video cam that comes over TCP/IP. Cool. You know how to show all that. I guarantee you guys got 80% of that knowledge right now. Y'all can show that kind of stuff, right? What you're working on is a presentation. So presentation in a business, what does your boss care about? How much? When's it going to be done? Who ain't doing their job? Key performance indicators, business intelligence. Those are the buzzwords. Write all those in your resume right now. Key performance indicators, business intelligence. That's where we're all going to. That if you want to work in the future, in the next 20 years, I guarantee you, key performance indicators and business intelligence is what you're going to be doing. I could be wrong. That's all I do. I could be wrong. And I speak in absolutes, and I don't mean that. But I think let's talk about business intelligence and what your boss wants. All right. I've had many bosses. I had a great boss named Gokul Patel at BE Aerospace, and he did not care what I did and how I accomplished it as long as I accomplished it. And one of the major things that I started off with when I reached BE Aerospace, is anybody familiar with BE Aerospace? It's here in the city. Okay. They make airplane crap. Of course, they're like changed hands like 15 times now, and I don't even know who they're owned by. But they make the stuff that goes inside of airplanes, and they manufacture it all around the world. And they also bring parts to downplane or planes that are stuck on the tarmac because they're missing a $15,000 bolt or some crap. So one of the first things that I was required to do when I showed up at BE Aerospace was build a system that enabled the lawyer to keep track of all the contracts that he signed, because he couldn't keep track of it. And we were signing contracts with suppliers, people who gave us nuts and bolts, people who manufactured, you know, widgets and whatnot. You know, we had thousands of contracts all signed by this one, to be kind, 60-ish-year-old lawyer who was on his way out, but had a hard time keeping track of it. If it were me, I'd probably have a hard time too. And I didn't want to do it. So what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with signed images, PDFs, thousands of them going back 20 years that needed to be. The existing system was, guess what? A file system, a Windows Explorer file system with thousands of documents shoved in one folder. Nice. All right, David, I need you to go to this share drive, and I want you to take a look at all these files, and I want you to create a tracking system so that we know business intelligence. What contracts are in effect? How much? When do they go out of effect? I want to know when I add a new contract, I need that contract approved before we sign it. I need workflow. I need business stuff, right? That's pretty important things. That's a $10 billion organization's basically entire operations is being built on a Windows folder. And I want to tell you right now, that is the only time I've seen crazy ad hoc stuff. It's the only time. I currently work for a large bank. I think I've said their name before, but now that I'm being specific. I work for a large, sorry, I'll get back to that. But I work for a large bank, $3 trillion. You would be surprised how much of their business runs on Excel. You would be surprised. And that is not a negative comment. Excel is an incredibly powerful and capable machine, right? It is by far, it probably runs this entire country. I've been inside the Army, I've seen their systems. They use a lot of Excel today, okay? So if you want to know which units are deploying to Iraq, well, we don't do that anymore. It was on an Excel sheet up in the Pentagon. And I saw that thing, and I was like, wow. That's how our government runs, right there. All right? Okay. So, I want to dispel the myth that you will be going into organizations and seeing high-end business processes. No. No, you will not. I want to dispel the myth that you will be going into businesses and be seeing, top-notch engineers building incredibly savvy and well-built machines that process business intelligence. I want to tell you that ain't true. Am I wrong?
Oh, you're absolutely right.
I'm absolutely right. You heard the man. All right. Why? Why aren't these trillion-dollar organizations spending money to develop the iOS 10 of materials data specifications? They don't care. They don't want to spend money on that crap. IT is a cost center. Anybody know what that means? You cost them money. You might save them money. Sure, they don't look at it that way. You cost them money. So, if the wheelbarrow is getting to the top of the hill, they don't care that you're using COBOL. Anybody know what COBOL is? Oh, you wish it's old, but it runs 80% of our banking system. Now that number might be wrong, but that's the last I heard. So when you get your paycheck, those coders are dead. DED, dead. Okay? So my point here is that that's a good thing. Otherwise I wouldn't have a job. Right? I go into organizations and it is a mess. And I'm like, yeah, I smell it. I smell it. Billable hours. Yeah. They think I'm going to be here for 3 months, but I will be here for 3 years. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right.
I'm absolutely right. Okay. Contracts. Very important. Go ahead, please.
So, when you go in and you see a system in a mess, how much of converting from an old system to a new system do you do regularly?
If my boss tells me to convert, I convert. If my boss tells me he don't care, I start from scratch because I don't want to read nobody else's code. If I go in there and it's pretty good and all I got to do is tweak it and I can get $10,000, man, I'm doing that. Right? So there's a dichotomy there, right? There's a balance. There's a seasoned, engineered review of how do I make the most money with the least amount of work, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So, you want to deliver to the customer what their expectations are, right? If they have an expectation that you're going to be upgrading their systems, then that's what you execute. If they have an expectation that that you're supposed to solve a problem immediately, you just solve the problem immediately. If they don't care and it makes sense for you to do it, then you do it. You rewrite it from scratch, you upgrade the code, you write a new language, you use that time to upgrade your skills so that you can plus up your resume so the next job is even easier to get, right? There's been plenty of times, and I told you about the SharePoint job, but that's not the only time where I've kind of just gone in and been like, yeah, I know C#. Sort of. I'm pretty good. But you get the job, it's not like they're going to, like on the first week, they're going to be like, okay, well, I need 1 million lines of code by Friday, otherwise you're fired. It's not the way it works. You walk in there and they don't expect anything from you for like a month. Because I don't care if you're walking into an Excel system or a file folder structure, you got to learn the business. How can you provide them with a solution if you don't understand the business? And if you're an employee, then they really don't care how long it takes you to get, because it's a capital expense. We don't really care. All right. So what is a programmer? Kind of elaborated on that a little bit. So you're analyzing the situation. You look at it and you're like, okay, I have 1 million contracts in a folder. Awesome. How do I solve all these problems? How do I accomplish the mission? How do I bring them the solution? What are the tools in my toolbox? Right now, none, right? Maybe a little HTML, a little CSS. Well, that ain't going to get the job done, right? Why not? Okay, make what look pretty, right?
It's presentation and you need a database.
Yeah, okay. So you see the limitations of what you learned so far almost immediately as soon as I present you with a business problem. All right? Now, I'm going to wave my hands here a second, and I'm going to tell you that programming is the gap there. Databases too, but programming is what fills that gap, right? When I gave you a business problem, saying that I have 1 million contracts in a folder, to solve that problem, you need to start doing programmer things. And really, I like saying programmer, but it's engineering is more what you're doing. You're engineering a solution. And what that means is, when you say programmer, that kind of means something a little, there's some nuance there. And everybody kind of uses a little different, but I'll tell you what it means to me. A programmer is somebody on a team of a whole bunch of people that do all kinds of different things. You got a database guy, you got an architect guy, you got a manager, you got a project manager, you got a scrum leader, you got all this crap. You guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but you got all these people and a programmer. And the programmer programs things. That's a very specific job. Now, an engineer is somebody who can go in there, or a software developer, if you will, can go in there and analyze a business problem. And they can say, okay, well, you need to move all of those files out of this folder. You need to give me metadata about all of those files. I need to start putting that into a SQL Server database. Then I need store procedures on top of that SQL Server database, which is just a fancy way of saying programming, store procedures, on top of that database. Now, I need a presentation layer, and I need a way of communicating between that presentation layer and that database. Programming. Okay, so programming is how I took those millions of contracts. I went to the business unit that had the 1 million contracts, and they had 3 admins. And I was like, okay, well, you need to draw a line in those 1 million contracts and a date. How long ago do you really care? Is it 100 years? Is it 1 year? They drew the line, 5 years. So now I had those admins going through the PDFs and pulling out the metadata. Customer. We're starting to build a database right now. Customer. And if you don't understand what I mean by database, I'm just saying fancy Excel document. And actually, they were really just building an Excel document. I probably should say that, so I don't use weird words. But they were building an Excel document, right? They were typing it in. They were typing in contract P0 94 17,000 whatever. Customer, Boeing, number of seats, amount of contract, who approved, who signed. They were filling all that information into Excel for 3 months. 3 people brutally putting all that stuff in there. I didn't do it. I make too much money for that kind of crap. But you might find yourself doing that. That's, you know, data analysis, that's retrieval, that's part of it, the engineering process of building business intelligence. Okay, I got a database. Sweet. I'm going to do it all in ASP.NET. Fancy words for HTML, right? So now I got an HTML website. Now, how do I communicate with the database? What languages do we speak? How do I tell the database, give me every contract that's happened in the past 3 days? How do I then give a user a form for them to enter a new contract? And when they put the information into the form for the new contract, how do I get that information from the contract into the database? Then how do I send an email once they've done that, letting his boss know that he actually did some work today? Right? Then how do I let the CEO know that his buddy just signed a $10 million contract? Then how do I let the CEO know that he needs to approve that $10 million contract before he actually executes the contract in ink? How do I... That's all what programming is, right? There's many tools in the toolbox to accomplish those missions, right? You've got Windows workflow. You got SharePoint can do that kind of stuff. You can write Windows services. You can write ASP.NET code. You can write timer jobs. There are so many ways to accomplish the mission, right? As you've learned with some of the patterns in HTML, in CSS, I can move things around however many way I want. You know, I can use blue. I can, you know, use CSS in a CSS file externally. I can put it in here. The pattern here is there's no one right way to solve all these problems. And that's what programmers make so much money, is because you gotta know how to solve all these problems, and a lot of it comes from experience. I'm sorry to say that. But you really just got to see business processes over and over and over and over and over again. I can literally, and let me just back up. You can get that experience. I ain't no more special than you guys. I just got my foot in the door. Get your foot in the door, you'll start to get that experience. The more experience you have, the more money you get. That's how it works. It's a very linear equation. It's very simple. All right. So I built the business intelligence. Now a manager can go into a website and he can see a dashboard of stoplights, because managers are busy playing golf, but they're busy. So they want to walk in the morning on their phone and look and see everything's green, back to the 9th green, right? They want to keep it simple, right? They're busy. So, you know, you're presenting information, you're processing that information, you're preventing users from doing dumb stuff by giving, everybody's filled out forms online, right? And been stopped because you did something stupid. That's programming, right? That's JavaScript straight up half the time. That's what we're learning right now. But if you want to communicate between that JavaScript and there's JS Node, there's all kinds of ways of getting to the database and getting back from the database, right? There's no one right way. They're going to teach you some awesome ways. That's great. You know, pay attention to those guys. But I hope that makes a little bit more sense about what programming is, what writing software really is. It is the glue that binds all of these things, databases, computers, phones, laptops. It is what moves the data. It is the pipes of the plumber. You can have a toilet sitting over there, you can have a bathtub, and you can have a septic tank, but you need to know what is the fall of the 3-inch DWV, and you need to know what flange you need, and you need to be able to take and know how much 90-degree angles you need to take to get to the septic tank. All that figuring stuff out to tie all those things together, that's what programming is. That's what you're learning how to do. So that's the speech. I don't know the best way to approach this. everybody go ahead and open up a brand new notepad. I'm retired. I'll be 41 in August. But I mean, there's all kinds of reasons for it. Huh?
You said in August you'll be 41?
I'll be 41 in August, yeah. I look 41.
Are you a Leo or Virgo?
I'm married. I'm just now I'm a Leo, and I'm actually not married though. All right, so let's do this here. We're seeing this. Let's see. Okay. So this, I'm gonna show you a trick. I'm gonna show you the least amount of ways of what you have to do to be a programmer. So everybody watch the screen up there. I'm going to type the word JavaScript. I'm going to put a colon, alert, open parentheses, hello, world. Try to do this on the first time. Bam! I'm a programmer. All right. So I know you guys probably covered this a little bit yesterday, but you know, you're writing software inside of HTML. You're writing code inside of HTML, let's say it that way. So there is a JavaScript engine inside of your browser that reads and interprets it, just like HTML, just like CSS. There's an engine in there that says, oh, hey, this is JavaScript. I need to do something special. So in a way, it's kind of like CSS. It has the same pattern. And that's what you're seeing right here. Here is the script tag. There is the alert. Everybody needs to go ahead and knock this out. Script, alert, hello world. And you're going to need at least HTML and head and all that kind of good stuff. Here, I'll get back over. But everybody go ahead and do that. We'll go ahead and check the programmer box. Everybody see this right here? Sorry, I'll go back in just a second. I just want to test the next thing I want to talk about. It did not work. What did I do wrong? Who ain't got hello world? Everybody in here just straight up programming. All right. All right. Let's see if I can't copy over this example here real quick. Go ahead. What'd you get? Awesome. I love error messages.
Thank you.
And you put a code in that. Oh, you want to share that with the class because that's everybody's going to see some of those.
So after any code in JavaScript, you have to put a semicolon. That means you're done with that part of it. So like in that case, it's well, if you look at line 11, it says document get element. Don't worry about what it means. And then you see a semicolon, so that means it's the end of that code. Okay. So if you don't put that, it's not going to work.
And what about the dashes beside the,
Not that at the end of it. What?
do those dashes mean anything, like kind of?
What dash?
Oh, collapse. Yeah, I got it.
Oh, shouldn't be.
Oh, that's just part of the text edit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, back in.
No, right after that. Right, so remove that. The code is there. Yeah, that's good. Save it as a WH2.
HTML, not JavaScript.
Yeah, and save your file as .html, not .js.
All right, we're all programmers. Congratulations, guys. Next. So that's cool. You know, you could send up an alert if they put in their social security number wrong. Cool, right? You can communicate. So that's something you can't do with CSS. Not that I know of. Could be wrong. But you can't really do that with HTML, so to speak. You can't really interact with the users, right? You could kind of send stuff, whatever, but that's an action that you just did. Is he still getting?
No, but you still save it as .js. So you added in the wrong file. So, the file you added it.
We ain't to .js yet. Everybody set? How are we doing in row no? This is a big deal here. Can't see nothing. All right, there we go. Questions. Hello world. Okay, I assume we're good. All right, I'm gonna go. All right, I broke this code. Yeah. I know how I broke it. No, you're good. So F12 is our best friend, right? So we got a couple things going on here. I went ahead and saved this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from scratch instead of cheating here. I'm going to go here. All right. So if I hit F12 right now, I got a big red X. Now, first thing to being a programmer is writing code. The second thing to being a programmer, and I'm sure there's a million things, but is writing terrible code that breaks. So I have never written code that wasn't broken. Ever. At all. Amen. That's just the way it works. You write a little bit, you test it out, it's broke, you fix it, you test it out some more. This stuff gets complicated fast. So you're gonna get into a whole lot more detail with these other smarter guys on how you debug, how you use debuggers, and that kind of thing. But I just kind of wanted to show you real quick what it looks like when you've written terrible code. I love it when he walks in like that. So I wrote awful code, and I left something off here because I'm writing this in Notepad, which is a terrible place to write code. So because, you know, I'm not getting IntelliSense. IntelliSense makes me lazy, and that's good, right? It makes me spell things correctly. I get the properties of everything. That's always nice, right? So right here, I don't have that. So I wrote it wrong. All right, well, you know, the missile's not going to launch, and that's okay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to see the error right there. It's going to give me the error. Document.getElementBy is not a function, you silly monkey. So that's the error. So all you got to do is come in here, and it tells you at my fancy file name, line 11. This is a web browser. That's awesome. This is a whole development environment. You can do your whole job right here, right? That's not true, but you can. So, but here's the thing. You're going to write crazy code with all kinds of languages, and you got all these fancy $1 million, probably $10,000 Visual Studio Professional, and how many times are you going to hit F12 and come in here and look for the error that didn't pop up in your Visual Studio? A whole bunch. The man said it. All right. So, you know, at the end of the day, this is your best friend. I don't care what kind of coder you are. You might be writing Visual Studio, you might be writing C#, you might be doing all MVC, you might be doing all kinds of crazy stuff. I guarantee you're going to be hitting F12 and trying to figure out why your error's coming back, even though you got this $1 million software. You're going to be in your free stuff trying to figure out what's going on. You're going to be in here, I promise you. All right, so I'll do it right. So here's the point. You wrote Hello World. That's kind of cool, but that doesn't really like show you what the sizzle is, right? You don't really get the why. Now what I'm going to show you right here is I have a paragraph tag, and I have test, the word test, inside of the paragraph tag. Now what I'm going to do is, through the magic of JavaScript programming, I'm going to change with coding what is inside of that tag. And I'm going to get Penn and Teller's Fool Us trophy. All right, here we go. Didn't work. I don't think I saved it. I saved it. Get element behind it. Looks pretty good. I think I just had it working. What did I do wrong? It's got to be uppercase. It's got to be lowercase. All right, there we go. There we go. Hey guys, if you ever get a chance, write live code in front of people. It's awesome. It's so much fun. All right. So there you go. You have completely changed. If I do view page source, you can see that it's test. So you have used programming to affect change in your presentation layer. Or in a more general sense, you have used programming to make changes. And so that is a higher level of like ability than just writing out HTML documents, writing out CSS. You can change things based on user input. We can put a button right here and that clicks the button and we'll get there. But I just kind of want to make sure that that concept is firmly, virally injected into your brain so that you can, it's a whole different way of thinking. It really is. So it's important to understand these basics right here, that you can use JavaScript and really languages in general to move things around, to change the presentation layer based on user input, to show them what they need to see, to let the boss know, hey, I got 15 widgets, I got 7 contracts, I got $10 million that needs to be signed, right? For my example. I gave him the Ted Pullis, the lawyer.
Oh yeah, it's a real project.
Yeah, yeah, that was crazy. But so what you can do here with programming is that. So let's go ahead and knock this out real quick and go ahead and affect some change. And if you would, try to use your resume and maybe change, some stuff on your resume based on a script tag and see what you can do. Before my voice completely gives out.
So why does our lower script changing magic coding text only work when there's actual text in the B function? So if there's no text in that.
Let's do it. Let's get out of page source. All right. All right, here we go. Still works. Okay, go ahead.
Should tell them it's case
Yeah.
sensitive.
Yeah, I screwed up because ID is case sensitive, and Internet Explorer doesn't like that. Isn't Chrome a little bit more forgiving about that?
If it is, it shouldn't be.
Yeah. So here's a better question for you, Scott. Why does this not work?
It goes in order, so it reads it down the page, and since you had the script first, there isn't anything with an ID that exists before that. So if you want the script or the Java to work, it's always going to have to be below what it is you're calling. In this case, might be.
And like,
We call it Java. It's
Java.
JavaScript. It's completely different idea.
and like anything in coding, there's ways around that. So we can do that.
Make sure you repeat his answer.
Yeah. So the answer is because the order of operations matters in this particular language and setup. So we have to have the line 14 before the script tag in order for the browser to load that object into its processor so that when it runs the script, it knows what's to execute against, if that's all that matters. Does that make sense to everybody? That's going to get you in a whole lot of trouble because you'll be writing all kinds of stuff and put scripts in all kinds of places and it won't have anything there. Does that make sense? All right. Execute. Change some stuff in your resume, put some scripts in there, and let's make some changes while you're with some scripts. And make sure you do it case sensitive.
The script acts like the tag earlier. Does it act like, does it have the same function?
The important tag from CSS? I would say no. The important tag from CSS is kind of a CSS specific override switch, if you will. Writing code is a very large thing as opposed to just flipping switches in CSS. This is legitimately interfacing the HTML document. This is changing things. This is, if you put your social security number in wrong, I want you to change the background color of the text box to red. I want you to pop up a message and I want you to email his mama because he should know his social security number, right? This is all kinds of like, do stuff. kind of things, as opposed to that CSS flag, which is kind of like just a feature of the language that I kind of brought up there at the end. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, what you got? Nah? Alright. See what you got, guys. See if you can spell better than I can. Are you still monitoring questions over there? I want to make sure we don't miss anything. I'm sure there can answer. Harper can answer whatever silly stuff I missed.
So I covered all of HTML and CSS in like 4 hours.
No. We kind of leading into it a little bit because we're talking about IDs, and I wanted to like use that as like variables and then kind of bring all the parts and pieces. Yeah, so I can kind of draw some lines. And then what I told them is that we'll just keep circling back to parts and pieces and kind of review what I didn't cover today. You and I can talk about, hey, here's some more important things that we
We got another couple days.
Yeah, so I figured just make a kind of a linear path through everything kind of all at once, and then we can kind of keep building upon all that.
Okay, well this is the
Same
other one I
picture.
had. I'll look at that. That'll be great.
So far, so good. Everybody seems to be doing okay.
I'll use the one I just made.
And I think you get a little nose blind if you hear about, every single CSS attribute for too long, and then you can get a little nose blind to it all. So maybe a little freshness.
So
I don't know. Kind of playing jazz a little
the
bit.
get element by ID should be parentheses.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Those parentheses?
Let me come down there.
Right here.
It should be normal parentheses. Thank you.
That is a property. Yeah, so you're getting an element by the ID.
God bless
That is the element you are getting.
It's really hard to
And
see
then you are setting
sometimes.
the inner each.
Well, I know it.
Yeah.
That is a property of the element.
Like just like squint it.
There's a million different, everything you're always going to do. Yeah. So, there you go. Right there is perfect.
Do you still do work on the side?
Yeah. Well, sort of. I substitute teach. So I just did a lot of that. So summertime.
Drink too much water.
Yeah. Like I just really killed it for the last 3 months and I want to die, but I have savings. And I'm a photographer. I get work. I get like $2,000 a week. I get a couple headshots. It's not too bad. Poverty is so fun. Being a musician is so fun. And my church pays me like $700 a month.
When I was growing up, I had cornflakes and no milk, peanut butter and no jelly. Ramen noodles, that was about it.
Us too.
Ramen noodles.
I wish I could show more people the house I grew up in. No one would ever complain about their house.
You see, we were poor as we could be until I moved out, and then my mom got with a man that was rich. Like the very same year that I moved out.
Man.
And I was like, Dad, I'm giving you money. She was like, no, you're going to make it on your own. Nope.
Well, nice mom. I can't marry rich.
She's teaching, well, my grandpa's a millionaire, my mom's a millionaire now. And they made me suffer because they want me to learn how to do it on my own.
Yeah. Gotta respect that.
I'd rather know that. I'm not trying to get anything handed to me.
Yeah. Excuse me. Oh no, I burped. It was just like a little one. I don't. Sorry. Why are you judging it?
Because it wasn't good enough.
This is a mess. Mess out of there. Saying
what's
excuse
the,
me?
tag to change animal?
That's okay.
What's the tag?
Like the dot inner HTML dot set tag could be what would work?
I think it's because it's an attribute, IMG, like it's the source attribute. You would be changing that. Did you Google it?
Yeah, I have it.
Did you have the answer? Why are you asking?
You just wanted to see if I knew?
No, I just want to make sure I was right.
No. The way you need to make sure you're right is stick it in that thing right there.
Wasn't
Figure it out.
accepting it.
What's the error?
That was also because I was doing elements by ID instead of elements.
Ah. Okay.
No, document. So get element. Right, and then we do dot active. Remove the stuff in the front. Remove all that stuff. No, front, not that.
Can you not just do dot src?
Just type element. Yeah, element. Dot. Yes, it's right here. It should be right.
Seems like a good idea yesterday volunteering to work.
Oh, by actually didn't dot.
Oh, you volunteered?
Well, somebody laid out this week. They're going to be out all week, so I'm just trying to fill in and help them out. There's no manager there, so I kind of got to do it.
You're the manager at KFC?
Yeah. Almost 20 years experience in restaurant management. I'm doing it well, not management. I started working in restaurants when I was 14. Actually 13. My family owned the restaurant.
So you better be manager.
Yeah.
My work.
I really understand the purpose of this.
I'm going to show you the purpose. We're crawl, walk, running. So I just kind of want you to see that
Yeah, I guess for me, a bigger picture.
we're going to get to a form.
Behind.
So where we're going to get to is a form. Right now we're talking about like just changing a P tag and all that kind of stuff. But really the next step, 2 more steps after this, is going to be how do I have first name and last name in a form that somebody types that in and tell them they're wrong.
Okay.
That's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We're getting there. We gotta crawl a little bit. That's all right.
No, wrong place. There you go.
You approved your face. Oh God.
Somebody's life over.
Using
Yeah.
JavaScript or anything, like just changing attributes and everything makes no sense when you're loading the page. Because technically you should do it. Like,
Oh yeah, no, this is
when-
completely
yeah,
useless.
When you like press a button or something.
No, that's the next thing. That's a whole button right there.
Yeah.
Isn't that the ID demo? Shouldn't that be above the button type? Because it's referencing the button type, but yet it's below the PID equals demo. Okay, so it should not be above button type equals button because it's calling for that PIG type, right?
Tell me why you're wrong. Read the text. The answer is in the text. It literally spells it all out. Think about it. What are we doing on line 8?
You're clicking.
Okay.
So
When does that happen?
So because it's a clickable object, it can come after.
Think why that happens.
You got it. Just the finished thought.
Okay, so once it's clicked, the code's gonna tell it.
You're going to click that button before it loads into the Internet Explorer?
No.
You'll be real quick if you are.
Right. Okay.
I bet line 11 loads 0.01 microseconds after line 7. So you're going to click that button before line 11 exists. It'll be fast. So what does that mean from a engine architecture pattern point of view? What does it mean? Just restate what you've already said. You've literally said the answer. So just say it again.
So once the button has to load, and then once it's clicked, the code will then tell it what's it.
Your question is, why does 11 not need to come before 7? Like I told you it did before.
Right.
Which was a lie. Because exceptions everywhere. Which means there are no rules.
I'm going to Google it.
No, you had the answer. The answer is because line 14 will completely load. You're going to click the button after that, which means everything is already loaded. The previous example that everybody else is working on, there's no user interaction. So it's executing serially in the browser. Whereas this, the difference is that everything is already loaded and we have user interaction. So we're building on what we're doing. So,
Okay, that makes
more sense when you see it.
Yeah, I figure out.
I'm messing with my resume.
Go ahead and write it, Dave. You've already got your other thing. Go ahead and write it.
I did. Prove me wrong.
I'm wrong about 7 times a day. Some of this stuff is dumb guy stuff. It's easy enough. And you'll sit there and think that, and then you'll do something that makes sense, and you'll just be like, all right, well, that ain't right. So later.
So,
sir.
So yeah, so if I wanted give me a different message, I mean not the date, but some other, if I click it, say I change the text in the button for, let's say, submit, right? Do it. I code, right? I code. No, these ones right here. Yeah, change that. Write something out. Put a single quote. Single quote. Hello. Single quote. Yeah. Try that real quick. Thank you.
It's because you got strings inside of strings. Some pretty advanced maneuvers for today.
Oh, okay.
You're fine.
step we're wrong.
Something's gonna be wrong.
There's never just a single good way. There's several bad ways.
Your choices are usually between one terrible decision and the other terrible. Engineering is all about compromise. There you go. There you go. Change it.
But the JavaScript messing with them, thank you so much.
All right. You write that? Write it.
That's all it is, and that's what JavaScript is doing. So if you want to change that, what is the word? You're right. Forget all this, you're right. You know that, like, what you do.
All right, if you haven't already done so, we got more code up there on the screen there. We can talk about it here in a minute. I won't let everybody catch up. That's a whole new way of looking at it. Notice everybody's got that going. If you haven't gotten that going, take a look at it. We'll talk about it here in about 2 minutes. That's why. All right, so we wrote code. We're all coders. Congratulations. You have it. So the code we've written, though, you're never going to write. It just basically executes when you run the page. What we have right here is the makings of communicating with the users, which is the true nature of our business. Take the user from the users, or take the data from the users and give it to the people. And if it's okay, the boss is here, so I'm a little worried, but I'm going to go ahead and play it anyway. I'm going to give you a little description of how I feel at work. There's a little break here. All right, here we go.
What you do in Inditech, you take the specifications from the customers and you bring them down to the software engineers. Yes, that's right. Well, then I just have to ask, why couldn't the customers just take them directly to the software people? Well, I'll tell you why. Because engineers are not good at dealing with customers. So you physically take the specs from the customer? Well, no, my secretary does that, or the fax. So then you must physically bring it to the software people? Well, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes. What would you say you do here? Look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
All right. So, the real point here is to ease you in, right? We talked about crawl, walk, run. We've been crawling, still crawling. We've been crawling for days. But inside the crawl phase, there's the crawl, walk, run phase. So
What we're going to do now, if you guys haven't already done that, is interface with the users. So we have a button, and we push the button. All right, let me do it here real quick. If you hadn't seen the code, that's the code. I'm going to interface with myself, so to speak. There you go. I just interfaced with the users. You have reached out, my children, and you have surpassed your skills. You know, I mean, it's a big step, right? You're literally taking a computer program and talking to someone. Boom. And you're letting them talk back. Two-way communication. Instead of just a basic static HTML page with a little fancy CSS on there, you just had somebody push something. Cool, do that. Bam.
Doesn't this still make it static?
What?
Would this still mean that it's static? Because
What does static mean?
Static is when all of it's contained within the website. So because this is still working within the HTML. and
What's
not
dynamic
calling.
mean?
Dynamic is
There's
when it
backend.
uses other systems to interact with it to do something. So,
All right.
For instance,
Server
it could
side.
be a database or object-oriented application layer.
Lots of buzzwords. We're all thinking. It's good stuff. Static, to
No,
me.
I'm just throwing them out there.
No, you're good. Resume time. No, you're good. Launch it out. Area weapon. I like it. So, to me, everybody's got their own little definitions. But to me, a static page is something that does not interface with anyone. It is just basic information. You go to that page, you see the contact information, you got the phone number there, you see the address. It has no interface with you. You don't do anything to it. It's a static page. Google Maps is not a static page. You put in an address, you move things around, you zoom in, zoom out. You are interfacing with the code. There is code there. So, is this a static page? Probably not. You got some code on here. You're affecting change through user interaction. I'd probably go ahead and check the checkbox under dynamic. You know, not a hard check, just a little bit. But that's kind of where I'd land on that. Not that it matters. You know, boss just wants to get done, right? Knock it out. How well does that play through for them? Do you know?
They're saying, I mean, they're responsive and,
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess.
I think it, well, I mean, Harper was cracking up when you started playing Office Space.
There's about 50 lines in there I need to put on.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It's a survival manual, sir.
I have a general syntax question for you.
Send it.
When you use single quotations versus double quotations?
In HTML, CSS, or JavaScript?
JavaScript.
All right, so if I'm, there's like a real programmer answer here that I'm not going to be able to like really. Yeah. In regular syntactical things, the only times it comes into play is when you need to do strings within strings. So, you know, because you have to flip back and forth between. But if you start with single quotes, you can go to double quotes. If you start with double, you can go to single. There's a lot in there.
Otherwise, you have to stay prepared.
Yeah. So literals is probably. I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say single quotes are literals, which means you don't have to escape. Right? Whereas double quotes.
Well, you have to escape, like, if you're using single quotes and then you have an apostrophe, you have to escape it.
Yeah. So with singles. Yeah. Yep. There you go. I've got some examples on here with that. When we get into it. We got 3 days of this, John. Yeah. All right.
So you just do image, click on.
Yeah, maybe I don't do it
I'm over here playing with the cat.
Well, you don't need to change it, all you really need to do is modify CSS to work with that changes. So, now, it should be going to activate, change that to
It's tight.
there's more stuff that I can't see right now.
I like it. What did I do? That's not value. Oh yeah. Too many examples in front of my face. Don't you?
Oh, I see what's happening.
Can I read probably there? Okay. Remember how to program one of these days. Sure you can. Such a liar.
I don't know if he meant this for you. Harper just texted dot value.
Dot value, okay.
Change dot inner HTML.
Thanks, Harper. Yeah, okay, I got you. Saw me struggling. Thanks, Harper. All right. Now hates that too. What did I do wrong? Do it live. Bam! All right. Let's move this down here a little bit. All right, everybody done with the on click, right? We're all good, ready to go. All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. All right, here we go. All right, crawl phase 1.1. Still this plan? So, what we have here is failure to communicate. Some men just can't reach. So you get what we had here last week, which is the so
I see.
Raise it. All right, culminating then. This is why we're all here. You just communicated with the users with Morse code. You click the button, off and on. Zeros and ones. But we need much more than that. Infinitely more than that. So, input. Pretty spectacular HTML tag. Text boxes. And a button. We just did a button, right? So the button was loaded, and then it alerted. So all I'm doing right here, so this is about as simple as you can get. Two text boxes. Refresh my old screen here. Two text boxes. User makes some input. David Riggins. Bam. All right. Social security numbers. Username, password. You got, what else we got? Amazon order ID, ISBN number, contract ID, amount of contract. I can name that button send to database. If it doesn't actually do it if you name it that. But so we're interfacing with the users. So we're beyond push button style. Now we're at the let's gather some information and let's do something with it. So this right here, and I'm going to say that at every step, this right here is programming, right? We can't just put this stuff on the screen in HTML and CSS and have it actually do something. We got to have JavaScript in there to actually do something. So and that's what we have. Now take a look at that on click. That is super scary. Anybody have any idea why that pattern is off the rails of what we talked about so far?
Setting two values.
IDs.
We're setting two things before you find value.
All good answers. No. I've got two JavaScript functions inside of one another. I'm getting an element by ID and the value inside of the alert. So I'm doing two JavaScript things all at the same time. That's fancy. That's about as fancy as I get. Not real. Okay. Make a form. Gather some information. I don't care what you gather. Let's do it. Go ahead.
So does that dot value just simply tell it to, no matter what gets put in that box is what it'll display. But
That's the magic. That's the magic. Put it together and test it out. Prove me wrong.
Does it automatically organize these? So it'll have like text box, but how do you organize those? So
The boss man tells you how to organize it, right?
yeah, I'm saying like how do you do it on this? Like is that when you bring in more HTML?
Sure. So we've learned a good high-level overview of kind of what HTML does for you, right? We learned about paragraphs, we learned about divs, we learned about tables, which is really powerful.
Sure.
So you could see how I could have a table with a bunch of rows and columns with about 15 inputs right there, make it all fancy, have 6 columns side by side where I gather 55 pieces of information about what we need on this contract that we're talking about, and then you have a 1 button down at the bottom.
So when do you need to encapsulate this in script markers? So sometimes at the beginning we had like scripts and then all of our JavaScript was within this.
Okay. So
we need to use those versus just having it in there.
right. So complexity.
Yeah.
So right here, we just got 1 button, 1 click, and we're crawling, right?
Sure.
So I just kind of threw it in right here. I could have that in a script tag up at the top, right, like we've seen, right? I could also put that in a script file, just like we did with CSS, like we talked about. Okay, so when would I put it inside of a script file? When I don't want future Dave to hate me, right?
Gotcha.
So I don't want super complex stuff all inside my HTML when I could put that in a .js file and I can easily format it and go back and find and figure out how to make it all work.
Sure.
Debug it.
Do that as like a function.
You could do it as a function. You could have it just straight up when the document renders. You could do all kinds of stuff that we're going to definitely get all the way into.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Absolutely. Good thinking.
So putting it in the script tags is not so much a way for the browser to differentiate between HTML and Java, but it's more for us as developers to look.
Yeah, think about it. Computers don't care how crappy your code is, right? Who cares? Future Dave. He's the only one that cares. You could write the crappiest code. In fact, you can take your JavaScript code, and there's websites online that'll compress it and rename all your variables in like single letter characters and squeeze all of your code down to the most unreadable stuff you could possibly imagine so that when you're serving it to people, it's very light. So the computers don't care how well your code is. They don't care at all. It's future Dave.
Okay.
I have a question for you. You need to know how to put something in these 2 boxes here. How do you make it display? Where it says this page says, type something in here, push this button, isn't it supposed to display?
Did you do that? Go ahead.
You must be missing something.
Okay. Where's your F12? Go ahead and hit that. Let's figure out if you got an error. Looks like a big fat red X up there in the top right hand corner. Like you screwed something up. Click on that. Alright, uncon syntax. Missing what after what? And it even tells you the line. So if you want to go to 16, I bet you'll figure out what you did wrong.
Alright.
Got it?
Yep.
All right. Why do I not need line 6 before line 4? She's already answered this one.
Because the entire page is going to load.
Dang.
Before you get a chance to even look.
There you go.
Plus, considering the end user, it would make sense to have a submit button before your key to fill out. So, from a formatting standpoint.
Every example up to this is terrible.
Why do you need to declare type? So what is the type for specifically here? If you're already saying it's
That's a good Google question. What's the input tag? What is the input tag? What does it do?
It's asking
I'm not
user
asking you.
to
Type it in real quick. You're going to get, find me all the options for type. What are the different types I can have? I bet there's more than one. Yeah, I could be wrong.
But how many different types are there in the button?
There you go. That's another good question. I like it.
I mean, I understand.
What, you got IntelliSense. You don't even have to Google it. What do you got? Reset, submit. Okay, so yeah, there's some other HTML-y things. You know, button's good. Submit. So what you can do is you can force a page to post. All right, and then there's behind-the-scenes coding, and that's where we're going to get into Node, and jQuery, and Ajax. Sure. So,
And I practiced it.
yeah, IntelliSense is nice. Indeed.
I think so.
Maybe I'm overlooking this.
All right.
I tried putting parentheses in here, but it didn't work out the way I thought.
Where did it say it was missing it? What line?
I didn't read that into it.
Did you save what you had already? Make sure you didn't magically fix it. I can't tell you how many times it's magically fixed something.
I'm pretty sure that's not magical.
It says this whenever I push the button. I got it.
Okay, go back. On click. Okay, we got two.
It's missing a parentheses somewhere. Is it right here after value?
Oh, yeah. Of course. That's the confusing part here. You've got a function within a function. So here's a fancy little thing you got to do. 1, 2 opens. 1, 2 closes. So that's, I made that mistake last week.
Oh.
That always happens, right? Because you just need to kind of count your parentheses, count your ellipses, all that kind of stuff sometimes. And if we were in a real IDE, it would have helped you out a little bit there, but we're in hard mode. And that's good.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Because what'd that teach you right there? You don't have to count.
You learn to count.
Yeah, but usually fingers are all right. You can take shoes off if you need to.
That's right.
Might not get that high. All right.
I just can't read it. I'm super away. Let me go back to it. I'm just missing this one tiny
You can cheat off on my
Yeah, my eyes are just tired today. It's not telling me I fucked up either, which is hard.
You gotta have 12 buttons.
It will come up. It doesn't say I did anything wrong. But my words aren't coming up. Because I just must have. Oh, there it is. That must be it. I just missed that little. Thank you. Perfect. Awesome. Just too far away from the very end of the screen. Thank you.
This is going to be the last one.
This shit's hard enough as it is without trying to fight each other.
4:30. We'll let them chew on this because this going into function real quick, and then we'll probably Start at the beginning tomorrow.
That's good. I think he was saying that he wanted a few minutes on the
Yeah. Okay. Well, just let him know. I'll probably do another 10, 15, and they can work, or if he wants to talk. I care not.
How do you get it to display both screens? Do you have to write a separate line for the last name as well? Or can you add that in our first name?
With operators that do use. So this would be like an
So, I mean, there's definitely some. I'm definitely waving my hands over a lot of JavaScript today. There's a lot of things we need to learn, but I kind of want to just talk about programming more than anything. But yeah, that's how you do that.
I got this up. It's not displaying when I push the button.
So it's 2
Push the button.
So go to your phone.
Margin ID put margin on fit
yeah, just after that.
Well, I didn't need an install reference.
There's an L in front of your
L
name.
instead of F.
Right here?
No, that's not an F, that's an L.
We wanted to do Word document. Get a little bit ID first name. And then be in the quotation marks of first name. So you see this?
I think it needs to be.
See where I'm at first name?
You want to just end on this, boss? I think next is function.
think
We'll just end on this, and then it's an hour. How much time do you want? We can let them churn on this a little bit, really let it sink in, and get in. And I was just going to kind of dig into harder stuff tomorrow. But
Yeah, I don't think we should move too far.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's just an ID.
I think we should
Oh,
give
okay.
it some challenges in HTML and CSS.
Oh,
'Cause I think
change this name to ID.
CSS is, but they don't know anything.
oh no, they don't know anything.
I would just force them to learn.
That should work.
Makes sense.
It just got last name, but not first name.
Refresh. And now just type. And y'all. Click the
Pretty happy.
Yeah, probably it's not saving.
All right, guys, real quick. Let me just wrap things up here real quick, and then y'all can go back to lab, and then Boss Man's got stuff to go over.
Okay, let me just
So
don't change.
we definitely went over a whole lot of stuff today. Very high level. You know, as you can tell, there is a ton of. I think I'll need to hear all this. All right, let's go through this, and then you guys can get your lab time back. So basically, what we covered today was not HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We didn't cover that at all. Okay? I gave you a taste of what you need to learn. I showed you how to learn it. Showed you where you need to go to learn all this stuff. We got 3 more days, and we're going to go through a ton of more things, and we're going to really dig into the details over the next 3 days. But, you know, I just kind of wanted to really, my intent here today was more to just show you what is a programmer. What do you do? What is it you do here? And, you know, what does it really mean? And why? Why do you want to do any of this stuff? You know, I think I made my points. Money. But, you know, at the end of the day, what we're going to do in the next 3 days is we're just going to really dig into all the parts and pieces. And we're going to really, I kind of wanted to see today how everything fits together. at the high level. And if you can get this down, you're going to see the pattern. You're going to see user interface, talking to the users, getting information from the users, using your languages and stuff that are coming up to start pushing data around. I think you guys get it a whole lot better today after this than you did when you first got in here, okay? So, everything else from here on in is going to be detail work. We need to kind of go through all the parts and pieces of HTML just so that you get familiarized with it. You're not going to remember it, but you need to know where all this stuff is and how it works and all that kind of stuff. We're going to go through CSS even more in depth. And then we're going to go through JavaScript even more in depth. All right? So that's my time. And I'm going to let you guys lab it out. Mr. Topboss has got stuff to talk to you all about. We're going to get after it. All right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I did want to say one thing. Go ahead and practice for another few minutes, and at 5 o'clock, we're not on the stream, right?
Yeah, stream's on.
Okay, stream. I'm going to have more interactive. That's the way I like to kind of finish the day. So I'm going to have like a live coding requests. Okay, you probably feel like you haven't learned a whole lot today because it's been a little bit slower pace, kind of gradually showing you the elements in CSS. You learned 2 new languages. And I'm going to show you, okay, you probably think, oh, that's the weak stuff. We're not into the good stuff yet. You're wrong. And at 5 o'clock, think of some challenging things like, I bet you can't do that with just CSS and HTML. And we're going to do it. So we'll just do it interactively. It's like, do that, change that red, change that blue, move that around. You can do all that stuff. And like, if you know CSS and HTML, and I know a lot of you are like thinking, okay, in the real world, developers really do this, or they just point and click stuff in an editor. They really do this. Okay, they don't do it all day long, but yeah, you have to know this stuff. So those cheat sheets with HTML and CSS, developers know almost every one of those. There are very few we look up after the first few months. So this is like a real language. So just because we didn't expect you to learn them all in the first 10 minutes doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So go ahead and play with it, and 5 o'clock we'll do some interactive stuff.
I'm going to shut everything down here.
Oh, yeah, well, actually.
Yeah, you want to make sure he's good?
I want to
no
make sure
questions on that
yeah.
side?
So, plus is probably a combination. Because I think never seen some of
Tell you something exactly like it looks stereo.
Oh, we're both hard chargers. That's how it is.
It's all part of that same
Guess we're good. There's nothing
All right.